Two military men went to explore the depths of the Yucatan Peninsula in southern Mexico. On their way out, they got lost in the passages and couldn't locate the exit. While searching for an exit, they kicked up silt, thereby drastically reducing visibility. Will they make it out in time? The Yucatan Peninsula, located in southeastern Mexico, is one of the largest limestone platforms in the world. This expansive landform, which measures approximately 181,000 square kilometers, is home to a diverse array of natural wonders that continue to captivate visitors from around the globe. Among these wonders are the CENOTES, which are natural pits or sinkholes that result from the collapse of limestone bedrock, exposing groundwater. Unlike other regions with visible rivers, the Yucatan Peninsula is a porous limestone shelf with no visible rivers. Instead, all the freshwater rivers are underground. This unique geological formation, combined with the region's tropical climate, has made the cenotes a vital source of fresh water for the people of the Yucatan for centuries. The ancient Maya, who once inhabited this region, were among the first to recognize the value of these natural wonders and make use of them for water supplies. The Yucatan Peninsula alone boasts an estimated 10,000 cenotes, which are located throughout the region in Mexico. These water-filled sinkholes, formed by the collapse of limestone, are an awe-inspiring sight to behold. The water that gathers in these subterranean cenotes is a crystal-clear turquoise color and maintains a very pleasant temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit, making them ideal for swimming and other aquatic activities. JULIAN McDonald is a highly trained U.S. Air Force pararescue jumper and a member of one of the most elite and specialized units in the military. As a tightly muscled 32-year-old, JULIAN is no stranger to danger, having repeatedly plunged from helicopters and swam against powerful currents. His unwavering courage and unparalleled skill have earned him a well-deserved reputation as a hero among his peers. He's an adventurer with a passion for extreme sports like ice climbing and hang gliding. He always relishes a new challenge and thrives in the face of seemingly impossible tests. During one of their missions, JULIAN had an opportunity to meet Steve Jackson, and the two of them hit it off from the start. Although both share a love for cave diving and exploring, Steve's approach is slightly different from JULIAN's. He may not be as daring as JULIAN, but he is no less adventurous. Steve is always extremely careful, taking the time to meticulously inspect his equipment and ensure that everything is in perfect working order before embarking on any new expedition. Despite his meticulousness, Steve is never one to shy away from a challenge. He's always eager to explore new territory and test his limits, but he does so with a great deal of caution and respect for the risks involved. Moreover, Steve is a devoted husband and a loving father to his 2-year-old son. He takes great pride in his family and is always looking for ways to balance his adventurous pursuits with his responsibilities at home. JULIAN and his friend and dive buddy Steve had long dreamed of exploring the underwater cave system of the Yucatan Peninsula, with its vast network of submerged caves and rivers. Though JULIAN was the more experienced and daring of the two friends, they shared a passion for adventure. They arrived at the cave early that morning, eager to make the most of their time and exit before evening. Before they started their dive, Steve took a few minutes to speak on the phone with his wife, informing her of their dive plan and exit time. He wanted to make sure that she knew where he was and when he would be back, and he promised to meet her in New York 2 days later. Once they finished their call, the two friends set off into the jungle, carrying their camera kit, dive tanks, and GPS sets. The dense foliage and swarms of mosquitoes made their progress slow and difficult, but they were determined to reach their destination. After several hours of hiking, they finally arrived at the entrance to the cave. Using their expertise and training, JULIAN and Steve attached a rope ladder to the base of a thick tree, carefully securing it in place to ensure their safe descent. They then donned their wetsuits and equipment and climbed down the tight hole. As they descended deeper into the cave, the darkness grew more and more intense, and they could feel the cool, damp air against their skin. At the bottom of the hole, they emerged into a vast underground chamber, the roof towering some 3.2 feet above the surface of the water. The inside of the cave was roughly 131 feet in diameter. The water they were standing in was the entrance to a vast underwater river system, one of the largest and most complex in the world. As Julian and Steve made their way through the tight underwater caves, they have to navigate carefully, trying to find a passage that connects to the other system. It's a difficult task, but they are determined to explore and discover something new. Despite the darkness, they keep their lights on, panning them around to get a better look at their surroundings. The cave is truly impressive, with small bats flying around and an island with stunning stalagmites and stalactites that formed during the Little Ice Age when the water level was lower. As they continued their exploration, they spent about 20 minutes moving deeper into the cave system. However, they soon came across a tight passage, and Julian signaled for them to turn around, as it appears to be a dead end. Steve takes over leading the way, but when he arrives at the point where they had entered, he can't seem to locate the exit. This causes him to signal for Julian to pass him and try to find the way out, but even Julian is unable to locate it. Exploring an underwater cave system requires a keen sense of awareness and attention to detail. The divers must rely on their instincts and knowledge to navigate through the darkness and narrow passages. As Julian and Steve continued to search for a passage that would lead them to the bigger underwater river system, they remained focused on the flow of the water, which would serve as a critical indicator of their location. However, as they descended further into the cave, the conditions began to deteriorate, and the water became increasingly silted out, which made it even more difficult to see and navigate through the tight spaces. Despite their best efforts to stay together, Steve became separated from Julian as they continued to search for an exit. As they bumped into each other a couple of times, they continued searching alone to maximize their efforts. Julian realized that he would soon be running low on air, and with conditions worsening by the minute, he had to act quickly to find a way out. As he moved carefully, he stirred up even more silt, which made it nearly impossible to see, and he struggled to breathe as the dust from the cave ceiling rained down on him. Finally, after nearly an hour of searching and feeling increasingly desperate, Julian stumbled upon a tight passage. He knew that a fully kitted diver couldn't pass through, but he had to find a way out. Julian removed his side mount cylinders and passed them through the gap before squeezing himself through, untangling a snagged regulator along the way. However, as he emerged on the other side, he realized that his gas levels were dangerously low, and he had to exit the cave as quickly as possible. Julian grabbed the cylinders by the valves and made his way toward the exit, praying that he would make it out alive. As he emerged from the murky water and gasped for breath, Julian could feel the weight of his scuba gear dragging him down, reminding him of his narrow escape. But he had no time to rest or relax, for he knew he had to act quickly and decisively to save his friend. With a sense of urgency and concern, Julian scrambled up the rope ladder as quickly as he could. His heart was racing with fear and anxiety, knowing that his friend was still trapped down there, possibly struggling for his life. As Julian stood above, catching his breath, he scanned the horizon with his eyes, looking for any sign of Steve, but there was nothing but silence and darkness. He realized, with a sinking feeling, that his friend was still deep down in the cave system, alone and helpless. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, Julian made his way to the authorities and reported the situation, explaining in detail what had happened. He reported that his friend was trapped in the water. He was questioned about what had happened, while two divers were kitted up for the rescue dive. The rescue divers carefully descended the rope ladder, and as they reached the bottom, a stream of bubbles caught their attention, and a shot line was swiftly deployed, securing them in place. One of the divers bravely ventured out to see if he could locate anything, while the others worked to prepare a stage cylinder that could be attached to the shot line. The stream of bubbles, initially strong and forceful, gradually weakened and eventually stopped after about 10 minutes of searching. Despite the divers' efforts, no significant discoveries were made, and coupled with the fact that the area was entirely silted out, the mission was incredibly dangerous. It was decided that the search would need to be postponed until the next day, when visibility would have returned and the conditions would be more favorable for the divers to proceed safely. After the emergency services arrived, a medic quickly checked over Julian, taking care to examine him for any symptoms of distress or injury. Although there were no immediate signs of trouble, Julian was placed on oxygen as a precautionary measure and transported to a recompression chamber for further treatment. There, he received the necessary care and attention to ensure his safety and well-being, and the team breathed a collective sigh of relief that the situation had been handled with professionalism and care. The rescue team returned the next day with renewed determination to locate Steve. Only now it became very likely that the rescue will turn into a recovery operation. Police divers were called in to investigate the various passages in the cave, scouring every nook and cranny for any sign of Steve. The search was a difficult process, as the divers had to navigate through the complex maze of underwater tunnels and caverns, carefully checking every possible hiding spot. Despite their best efforts, it was not until several hours into the search that Steve's body was finally discovered. He was located in an air pocket that was half full of water, with his head above the water's surface. It was a heartbreaking sight, and the divers worked quickly to bring his body to the surface. Unfortunately, Steve had passed away, and the cause of death was not immediately clear. The coroner examined his body carefully, trying to determine the cause of death. It appeared that Steve had suffocated from a lack of oxygen, but the coroner could not say for certain whether he might have become asphyxiated on air filled with carbon dioxide. He did note, however, that Steve's dive tank still held plenty of air, indicating that his death was likely due to some other factor. The news of Steve's tragic passing got to his wife, who was devastated and inconsolable. His friends and family were left reeling with shock and grief. His body was taken to his ancestral home and laid to rest there. We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another exciting cave diving story.